Hello, podcast friends. It's another edition of the Landscape and Garden Show with Bob and BT. Bob Harvey and Brian Turner right here on the Alive and Social Network. Hello, Bob.
Hello, BT. How are you?
Very good, my friend. Good to see you on this spring day here in the Alive and Social Network studio.
We're still springing. We're springing into spring.
Indeed, we are. I wore my winter coat again today. What? That's April in Minnesota for you.
Yes, I'm dreaming of a white garden. Is that what?
No, you're not. No.
There are white gardens.
I got you. I understand that. You can get some really nice flowering trees going.
We can plant snowdrift roses.
Let the petals fall. Plant the snowdrift roses all you want. Just let the metaphor live there in a green fashion.
I know.
All righty. We got a couple of special guests here that work with Bob Harvey at Edelweiss Design. Josh McKinney's here and Adam Jones is here. Josh, good to have you in the room with us today, my friend.
Good to be here.
Real good to have you. And Adam, welcome to the Alive and Social Network studios also.
Thanks for having me.
I need to apologize, obviously, in advance that we asked to bring you into this very social media setting. And here's the boss right here. You spent enough time with him already as it is, for crying out loud. I mean, he's a good guy, isn't he?
Very good guy.
Let's learn a little bit about you guys. Josh, give us a little bit about your background. Did you grow up in this area? Tell us about Josh McKinney.
Sure. Grew up actually in South Dakota, both in the rural portion of the state, in Huron, South Dakota, and then moved to Sioux Falls. Went to high school there, and then decided that I wanted to become a landscape architect. And so went up to Fargo, the Great White North, to go to North Dakota State for landscape architecture school.
They have a pretty good program there, then,
yeah,
that sort of thing? Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good place to learn how to become a landscape architect.
Yeah, very good for you.
And then as soon as I graduated in 2010, a terrible market for landscape architects, and was looking for jobs all over the world, really. And then actually ended up in Fargo with my first job and stayed up there for about 3 years. And then I've been here for around 4 now. So
I'm guessing that 2010 was a bad year for landscape architects coming out of school.
Yes.
Just because the economy was sucking
it was
pretty
awful,
bad then. Yeah. And you as a business owner, I mean, a lot of people involved in anything home-oriented, yard-oriented. That was a tough run then, that whole 08, 09, 10, 11, I mean, 12. It was a pretty good trough there, wasn't it, Bob?
Yep, we survived it, though.
Yeah.
We have a good business model. We call it the three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool basically is comprised of, in the design-build industry, a facet of design and consulting. And the second leg would be installation and construction.
Yep.
And the third leg is property management and horticultural services. So when one of the legs gets a little short, the other two are still there to hold you up. And that's basically how we weather those undulations, is the design and the build part are married together. And we let the economy work with us on that, and we know how to respond to it.
And just buoy yourself through the tough times. No matter what you got to do, you got to do it.
Well, you learn how to do a lot of different things, and I think that makes your profession very valuable.
Well,
you're versatile.
And the stool analogy works. I mean, you can't have a stool with 2 legs, 1 leg. You really got to have the 3 to make it stable, and that's there. Josh, did you garden as a kid? I mean, did you get into plants? Did you get into more the design aspect? Was it the architecture part that really piqued your fancy?
And I think you'll hear this from a lot of budding landscape architects, is that no pun intended.
Before the show started, we had him flying, and look, he's bringing it in. He's got game.
I really wanted to design golf courses. Is really why I got into the field was, I was an avid golfer. I thought, hey, I could design a golf course.
I could do this.
And what profession allows me to do that? And then I got into school and started really developing my profession and realized, there's so much more to landscape architecture than golf courses. And also it didn't really help that there's probably only 3 or 4 large firms in the entire world that really design these, one-of-a-kind golf courses.
Okay.
And so kind of diversified my experience. And, as much as I'd love to design a golf course, I'd be okay if I never did. And so I just really enjoy kind of all aspects of landscape architecture and don't have to be stuck to that one side.
Have you ever had a project, though, where they said, I'd like to have just like a nice little par 3 out there? Have you had anything like that pop up yet?
Did a couple of putting greens, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, they're pretty popular.
Which is really fun. But the other thing is, when I started my career in Fargo, it was what I really got to appreciate was the native landscapes. Mostly because the planting palette's so limited in rural areas or the plains states, not so much maybe in Minneapolis, but outstate. So you kind of have to go more towards the natives. And so that's kind of been what draws my aesthetic, is to try to keep and use as many native plants as I possibly can. And kind of stick to the prairie almost.
Yeah,
so
nice.
Kind of been a fun journey. You get a little bit of both here in Minneapolis, depending on where you're at in the city. So
Yeah, you're not, and then you're not pushing the issue. I mean, what you're doing is matching the world that this landscape is going to inhabit in a larger sphere.
Absolutely.
And sort of a hand in glove situation going on there. Yeah,
Yes.
Nice. How about you, Adam Jones? Step up to that microphone a little bit closer and tell us about your background. You a Minnesota guy or South Dakota guy like Josh here, or where are you from?
I'm a Minnesota guy. I
All right.
spent all of my childhood growing up in small town southwest Minnesota,
Okay. Down Fairmont Way or
Montevideo.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Wilmer area.
yeah.
And I'm also an NDSU grad. Went to school for landscape architecture. Yeah.
You like Josh here. Were you into plants or into anything in an architectural fashion? What was your tipping point?
To be honest, my initial interest at NDSU was architecture.
Okay.
But I grew up. My family was very involved in the landscape, planting annuals and bedding perennials around the house, and so yeah, we did things around the house where we were getting grubby and getting our hands dirty, and it was great.
In any garden, you have to water the plants to make them grow. And I realized my manners, Bob, our manners were off with our guests here right out of the chute. Because, Adam, it sounds like you need a drink of water. Do you need a drink of water?
I would love a drink of water.
Josh, do you need a drink of water? Sure. Yeah, okay. My co-producer here is going to run and get some water. I just realized, hearing Adam talk, he was like...
I'm smacking a little bit.
Well, and that's okay. But what it did is reveal the need.
Yes.
And, you have to pay attention to the plant that's coming out of the ground, and then it will reveal its need to you.
I should have just asked.
Well, now we're loosening up a little bit. Now it's good. Everything's good. I did this wine event a couple weeks ago, and of the winemakers that were there, almost to a fault, 4 winemakers there. They all went to the University of California, Davis, because they have this really serious winemaking program there. And it sounds like, at least in the upper Midwest here, for you two guys, and maybe a whole lot of other landscapers, and Bob, maybe you can speak to this as well, people that you encounter or work with or hire, that University of North Dakota program that really, I'm sorry.
Yeah, North Dakota State University.
You know what?
They're
As soon
two
as it-
very different things.
Josh, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I realized that I made the thank you for calling me out on it. That the NDSU program.
Thank you.
Boy, the look on his face. We're coming.
Darts
we're-
going across
I
the
know.
table here.
We're going to come to blows. It's the first. Well, no, it's not the first time we've come to blows on the landscaping program. No, we've had some blood spill on the table. The NDSU program, though, is populated by a lot of students that then stretch out and go. And it's that kind of program. Would you speak to it that way?
Yeah, I do. I think one thing about NDSU too is it does draw a lot of students from the metro area, and so I think that what at least my experience is, you'll find a lot of NDSU graduates of the landscape architecture and architecture programs kind of come back to the metro area and then spread on from there. But it's kind of fun because I know so many of people my age and a little older that have gone on to have start their career in Minneapolis and just kind of gone on from there. So.
Yeah. Would you attest to that too, Adam? I mean, when you were at school up at NDSU, not North Dakota University, were there a lot of folks that came from the Minnesota, the upper Midwest area, or maybe other parts that were places that were a little further flung?
Yeah, certainly.
How's the water, by the way?
It's delicious. It's wet.
Very good stuff. Thank for getting that,
Thank
Lydia.
Yeah, there were even a handful of people. Montevideo isn't a big city, probably 5,000 people, and there were a handful of of students that I graduated high school with that attended North Dakota State University as well. So,
Yeah, specifically in the landscape thing, or just in general?
no, in general.
In general, yeah. But Bob, you speak to the NDSU thing. Do you run into a lot of people that went to that program?
Actually, I have had former staff as well that
That's
were
cool.
NDSU grads, or a hybrid of a few years at the University of Minnesota and at NDSU. So I find in my experience as an employer that the students that come from there have a well-rounded balance, understanding and practice of landscape architecture, and they can be versatile and adjustable to, again, that three-legged stool.
Yeah.
In our situation. And that, I think it's can serve them very well if they have a comfort level with all three areas, because they understand they're all interconnected. And when we look at the very beginning from a conceptual phase, we all automatically view it 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. What is this going to be looking like 10, 12 years from now? And
Sure.
so you're doing both ends. And in that journey of those years, there is all the other aspects, the construction and the maintenance. And how's that vision going to be propagated, if you will, and continue to be maintained? And you have to have a good understanding of all the aspects in landscape architecture.
Was he punning us there? Should I have called him out on that? I don't know.
I think you missed your opportunity.
That was I know. Yeah, when you're a sentence or two too late.
Yeah.
Dang it. I think that's one of the beauties of the landscape architecture environment and world is that future forecasting that has to be a part of it. That's so cool that you have to look and see in your mind's eye when you're laying plants out and when they're going into certain places.
Well,
How is that going to be 5, 10, like you said, 15, 20 years in the future?
And the other thing, too, is that the role that we play, our desires to be more on the proactive end rather than the reactive end. Mm-hmm. A lot of times in a reactive situation, we're trying to correct something that was either done improperly or it cannot continue to function in its current state, or maybe it proposes a hazard. But proactively, we can look at things as they should be long-term and address those things now and save people money and also help them realize what the vision is.
Nice, yeah, and really set the stage for ease of maintenance and a lot greater use rather than working it. You're playing in it. Although it's sometimes okay to work, I like getting out there and getting dirty too.
Well, and that defines a lot of the different types of landscapes, because some of them are working landscapes. People want more out of them, and so if they're doing a lot of produce or productive kind of gardening and maintenance, that's becoming very popular. The edible landscapes that provide food and other benefits. So,
Josh, are you and Adam both working on this Afton project that we're going to discuss during the course of the show today? So both of you working on this one?
Yep, absolutely.
And Adam Jones, you're working on that Weber Park Pool project that the Minneapolis Park Board is doing in North Minneapolis, aren't you?
Yes, I've had a fabulous opportunity to be involved with this really cutting-edge project at Weber Park, natural swimming pool.
Yeah, natural swimming pool, and so we're going to want to get into that a little bit as well. I've been watching the progress on that because, and I'll see it again today. I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon. I only bring that up because my physician's office is right in that neighborhood, and so I drive by that to and from the doctor's office, and it's just been cool watching it and seeing the signage, which points out that
That's
it's
right.
the first of its kind in North America, as I'm reading this right? Yeah?
That's right. It is. It's hugely successful overseas. This concept kind of originated in Europe, but it's taking off really across the world, and we're starting to see it now in North America. And you read it right. It's the first of its kind in North America, both the U.S. and Canada.
That's fascinating. So we'll dig into a little bit of that with Adam Jones as well. Bob Harvey, it's time for our What's Blooming segment here on the Landscape and Garden Show. Here we are, the week of Earth Day, the month of Arbor Day, and we've been sort of charting the course of what can go in the ground, what can't, and then, of course, what's already starting to present itself. So where are we at right now at this point in April, sir?
well, we're seeing a lot of bud break in the trees and shrubs where actually now some small leaves are starting to appear. The florets that were on the maples and some of the other things like the aspen and poplar family that have been blooming. Some of those are actually starting to drop because of the wind, but they've been very ornamental early in the spring. The red of the florets on the maples, and then the bright yellow of the forsythia, and then you throw a couple bulb perennials in there like pushkinias or crocus or scilla, the bright blue, sky blue color scilla, and you just know there's more to come, and it sticks out so much right now because the predominant landscape is still kind of quiet. You were seeing the little haze of green when you go over the river and you look at the bluffs. You're starting to see the little haze of green that's coming out on the trees.
Yeah, that transition from gray to that light green is really fun to witness.
It's really fun to witness, and the early greens are usually displayed by the willow family and the maple family and the populus family. Cottonwoods, those kinds of things are the earlier show. And then the buds of the oaks will start here shortly. There's an old weather lore that says that the danger of frost has passed when the leaf of an oak tree is the size of a mouse ear.
Of a mouse ear, okay.
Of a mouse ear. When it's the size of a mouse ear, the danger of freezing temperatures has passed. So we'll see how. I watched that from year to year a little bit. And,
I think we need to get you a rocking chair.
Well, yeah.
I think we need a little, like maybe one of those fireplaces.
And a pipe.
And and a flagon of some.
We can have a weather lore moment.
Like.
Absolutely. I think we
like
should incorporate it into the show. There's lots of good old weather lore sayings.
That was totally poetic. I love that. It was kind of old.
Robert Frost is a distant cousin. No.
Yeah. Well, we have miles to go before we sleep on this show. So what else is blooming?
But
now, that was a literary pun there, McKinney.
Wow, that was perfect.
Did you get that one?
Nice. I really like that.
One of the things
set
that
me up nicely.
is not real common around town, but you will see it, especially if you're out at the Arboretum and gardens like that, is the bloodroot, the Sanguinaria canadensis, which is a little starry white flower that comes up and the sticks up above the leaves of the bloodroot plant, and they only last about a week, but they're just so happy right now and shining in the garden. Apricots have been blooming this week, and the earliest of cherry blossoms are opening in my yard. My Prunus tomentosa, which is the Nanking cherry, it's about a 8 to 10 foot shrub with very beautiful looking cherry bark, all splayed out, is about 40 to 50% blooming right now.
Now remind us again, how many cherry trees do you have in that yard?
My 4.
4 of them, okay.
4, just 4.
I didn't know if you had 5, like one for each of the boys.
If I could get rid of the garage, I'd have a few more. I'm a vowed cherryholic. But there's lots of other fruits that are coming into bloom. We could talk a little bit about getting some of those fruit trees planted because this is optimal time right now.
Yeah, especially this Arbor Day month. And so we'll dig into that in just a bit. I want to dig into this Afton project for a little bit here.
Sure.
Who's the lead on this one? Is that you, Josh? Is that you, Adam? I mean, when we were meeting downstairs before coming up into the studio space, you're the one that whipped out the plans, and we were looking at the plans. Is that your work then, the handiwork there?
Well, both of us worked on the plans.
Okay.
I'm the project lead on that project, but
Got it.
It's just been a really fun project. I spoke a little bit earlier about how much I like working on native projects, and this is certainly one of those where it's he's really passionate about our client. We have an amazing client, which is one of the ingredients you need to have a great project. And he's very passionate about keeping the landscape native.
Okay.
And so the project really originally started out as working on a really, really cool house, just a patio project. And then it was, hey, you know what? I want prairie, all the rest of my property, I want it to be prairie, which I thought was cool enough. And
that's certainly hand in glove with what you were talking about with the native and the landscape.
About how many acres we're talking about and the location.
The prairie itself is about an acre. But the site itself, is bordered by a state park, and so his, the actual property, he gets to kind of borrow a view, if you will, to the state park land, and it's just it's a beautiful site, and so, but then this project really kind of morphed into, hey, I think I want to add a pond or a water element to it. which is another challenge. It's really fun.
Sure.
Because what we don't want to do when we do a project like that is kind of have a circular type swimming pool-esque feel to a pond shape. And
Especially
so-
when he says, I want it to look like nature
Right.
in my yard, in my landscape.
And so it's a really cool opportunity to really study what would occur naturally, and also really take into account what else we can accomplish with this pond. For instance, when we go in the driveway, we kind of don't get to see the house, which is great. It's kind of a little reveal to the house because the pond creates an edge that's got to be raised to hold some water, and it's a really great opportunity to accomplish multiple things with one real stunning element. And so it's just a great project. It's one of those that I've really enjoyed working on because it's not just sod and plants and that kind of thing. There's a real passion behind what's going on.
How big is this pond as a part of the project?
It's about 7,500 square feet, which, as ponds go, is fairly large, but it's not a massive lake by any means. And so it's big enough where we can go and swim in it. We just a quick swim or kind of we can have wildlife be attracted to it, which is really a goal of our clients, is to have frogs and birds and deer and that kind of thing come up to this, and he'll be able to watch it from the comfort of his living room.
Is there any of the natural pool action going into this pond, Adam, or is this more of just a natural pond that he's trying to create, that you guys are creating for the client?
Right. What we're creating here is more of a natural prairie pond as
Okay.
opposed to a natural swimming pool. We can talk a little bit about the differences whenever you.
Yeah,
see
let's do
fit.
that. I mean, because we're talking about this client's pond. Let's do that. So what is the difference?
Sure. One of the biggest difference is that a natural swimming pool is it's always designed, built, and permitted as such. A swimming pool. The primary use is for swimming, so it should adhere to certain regulations for swimming pool, such as ingress, egress, electrical bonding, fencing requirements, slopes, things of that nature.
Sure. All the safety things that need to go into any kind of pool need to be up front, no matter whether it's a natural
Correct.
pool or a blue pool, as the case would be.
Right, a Windex pool, as we playfully refer to them.
I like that.
Yeah. Right. So there are a couple key points when referring to a natural swimming pool. One is that it's a contained vessel. It's closed looped. We want to control the amount of nutrients that are coming in and out through bathers or swimmers, or external factors. There is a physical separation of the swimming area and the planted area, what we refer to as the regeneration zone. And then, of course, we're not using any chemicals or mechanical sterilizers of any kind. So we're not using chlorine or bromine, no UV or ozone. It's 100% living water, biologically active.
Yeah. But living, I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to swim in a number of them in Europe, and it's really, the term living water, it invigorates you. It's really, it's a fantastic experience.
When you're swimming in an environment that's not a chemical-oriented environment, it's lake-like, but it's not a lake.
Correct.
Because there aren't any of the organics that would live in a lake in there, but it's still natural water.
It's going to be the cleanest lake you've ever swam in.
Oh, that's so
We're
cool.
optimizing the natural processes that occur in nature.
So now with this pool on the client in Afton, so that's not a natural swimming pool, but it is a nature pond. So what are you trying to do there? Is there still some water filtration that will be a part of it, or water circulation that needs to be a part of it to sort of keep things moving and rocking?
Yeah. So with this particular pond, the main function obviously is habitat creation, and also we have just the visual from the home. And so with this one, the goal is basically to keep the water clear of algae and moss and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we'll have to do for that is there'll be what's called a diffuser, which will basically break up the surface tension of the water and not allow that stuff to accumulate on the surface. And also it will help with keeping some of the mosquitoes and stuff like that down.
Sure.
So essentially all that is there's two diffusers that go at the bottom of this pond and shoot air bubbles up to break up the water surface tension. So
And literally keep it moving.
yeah, it's just basically a recirculation from the bottom to the top.
Okay.
And at this particular pond, the max depth is about 9 feet, and so there's enough room or a bank of water at that depth to keep things moving enough where we're not getting a whole bunch of surface nastiness.
Sure.
It'll add, if I may,
Please.
oxygen to the system as well, which is good for the aerobic bacteria and also the plants, which are helping to break down organic impurities and help keep the water clear.
Is the breaking of the surface tension on the water, is that what allows the oxygen to be more, seeping into the water or seeping into the ecosystem at all? Or what? How does the oxygen generate itself into the water?
Through the compressor, it's compressed air.
Okay,
Yeah, through a diffuser plate that's dividing the air into fine bubbles.
Gotcha.
essentially.
So we've got these diffusers on the bottom of the pond. This is fascinating me now. So you've got lines coming in that are feeding water to these compressors, or at least out of the pond.
No, actually,
How does it work?
it really is just think about your. I don't know if you've ever had like a fish tank where you have an airline that's fed to it, and
Yeah,
kind
okay.
of that is essentially
same
where
thing.
it's a
Okay.
massive
Got it.
scale of that.
Okay.
where we're
Makes
just
perfect
feeding,
sense.
we're taking air that's on the surface of the water, or it's, outside of the water area itself, pushing it down to the bottom of the pond, and the air comes bubbling up to the top of the pond. And so, with this particular pond, we didn't want a fountain to break the surface tension or
Sure.
anything, ornamental or anything like that. It's really we're trying to hide the utilitarian nature of what we're doing with the diffuser on the base of the pond.
Is there like a reverse shower head there, so that it's a bunch of little bubbles rather than one big stream of bubble?
That's
then?
kind of an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, it's exactly really what we'll look at. It'll be a whole bunch of mini bubbles.
Yeah, got it.
So-
And you'll just see a bit of that bubbling from the shoreline.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a little bit, because again,
Just
you don't want
barely,
it to be a big visual distraction.
Yeah, no fountains of Bellagio or anything like that
Yeah.
going on here. So yeah, just really simple, for this pond.
In spite of that, what happens in Afton does stay in Afton.
That's very true.
Yes, it does.
Except for the purposes of this radio show.
Right, exactly. Right now, except for right now, the state park is right next to the land.
Yeah.
So, as the owner said, he wants to encourage, and he and his family want to encourage to see these critters. So, deer, raccoons. I mean, it doesn't matter. He just wants this to be a part of the groove. Then, huh?
Yeah, it's certainly put a home on the site, but beyond the home and any traffic that the home might generate, it's a really kind of blended into nature as much as we possibly can.
What a unique project.
So it's a very fun project, and it's a fun one. It's we're keeping ongoing, obviously, for the next several years. Actually, by the time we get all the phases in place, it's kind of its own living thing.
Bob Harvey, a lot of the projects you guys do, and I think landscaping in the mind's eye of a lot of people, it tends to be set apart from the surroundings. Not to say that it's unnatural, but that there's a certain set apartedness, if you will, that you can see, here's the earth sculpting that we're trying to accomplish, and it's beautiful, and here's the living space, and here's this, and here's that. This seems to be the opposite of that, is that it's truly landscaped, and there's a touch in there that is human-made, but as Josh and Adam are pointing out, the idea is to make it integrate into nature. How many projects like that come around? They tend to be more the first one that I described rather than the second one, or am I wrong?
Well, there's elements of both that occur in any setting.
Sure.
And the setting there lends itself to when just you are incorporating all the natural surroundings as part of the borrowed or extended landscape for the project that you're doing. Excuse me. And so it's really easy to do in a natural setting because the template is there. We did a burn for an area that's going to be near the ponds because there'll be a lot of native prairie stuff that will be in there, and seeds will be going down. And we have eliminated some of the invasives that find their way in, even into the natural settings. We're very familiar with buckthorn and some of the other kinds of invasives that escape me right now, but there's plenty of them.
What have
That's
you
probably
had
the
to pull out of there, Josh?
Brome grass, quackgrass, just the general, what they call cool season grasses are starting to really pop up right now.
Get them now. Get them
Yeah,
out of
so
there.
when we did our prairie burn, a lot of it was to take out some of the dead warm season grasses, and then also more expose the cool season grasses so we can take care of those at a later date.
Got it.
And so that really is, to Bob's point, it's another opportunity to almost make what's on our site a little bit more, almost more pure, in terms of getting some of the invasives out. Where even adjacent to the state park, we might have some more buckthorn than what we've got.
Right.
So, and we have a client that's really committed to that. So it's kind of a fun process to go through. Is the question: what would you do if you didn't have any limitations in terms of a vision for your client? This is one of them. It's a great project.
How fun.
Yeah.
How fun indeed. When did this project begin? Bob, did this start with you and the client, or how did this all begin? Yeah,
it did. And actually, I've been working for the client's parents for about 25 years.
Okay.
Maintaining their property in St. Paul, and then when an opportunity came up, the son and his wife were purchasing this land out by Afton and wanted some. We walked the property last year and just said, "What ifs?" Talked about the what if site. Location of the house.
Oh, and they hadn't built the house by
no,
then. Okay.
nothing
Okay,
was
got it.
touched yet.
Got
I mean,
it.
they were still, the ink was still drying on the purchase agreement, but it was an exciting thing for me because the land had a lot of interesting features. There's a lot of topography variation, and there's a lot of variation in the forest components and open areas and some outcroppings. So orientation of the site with a lot of southern exposure, just a lot of things that were perking, and that's again on the proactive end, way ahead of any kind of even drawings that were started. So things really kicked into gear late last summer, early fall when the house construction began. Went through the course of the winter. They moved in just after January 1st and are living in the home. Inside is pretty much wrapped up. The outside is our bailiwick.
You're
right
still
now.
working on that too. So when did Josh
So-
get looped in? So that now we're talking. It began last year.
Yeah.
And you're the lead on this one. So when did you start coming into play then?
Yeah, I think the first time I stepped foot on site was probably maybe August 1st
Okay.
last year. And so really the goal then was let's get a master plan ready around the home. And it really focused a lot on patio space, hardscape. What's my outdoor living situation going to be with, fire pit, plantings, that type of thing around the house itself. And then it really this winter, we kind of took a more broad look at it. Like, hey, if you want to add some more native, if the goal is to add some more native surroundings, let's take a look at how we can maximize that opportunity and really add some certain things to screen out, undesirable views or anything like that we might have. And so this winter is really where the design kind of rubber to road met. And finally, with our gift of an earlier spring, we've been able to get on it a little bit earlier.
When did the digging start? For the pond and for some of this bigger parts of the project now.
Pond started excavation actually only on Monday, the 20th, so yesterday.
Wow.
And they've already just made a huge dent, so it's just great. We've been doing a lot of the site grading work, and it's going to be all ready for any additional trees and stuff like that next week.
Now, is this will this be one of the lined kind of ponds then, or is it more of a natural, bottomscape to the pond? You want to answer that, Adam?
Sure. What they're going, it will be lined. It
Okay.
will be a synthetic liner, a 30 mil PVC membrane will line the pool.
Yeah, got it. So then some rock or some kind of soft stone or something that'll cover on top of that?
They're going to lay down a sand to protect the liner around the edges. Yep.
And so if some critters get in there, deer down on the side of the pond or anything like that.
Right, it should be protected.
Yeah.
The sand will also act as a bedding for for any aquatic marginal plants.
Yeah, and a little something between the toes to go in there and get a little swim in.
Absolutely.
That sounds like they're going to want to get in there and swim a little bit. Also, you said the digging just began. How many crew people were out there then? Did you got to have some serious bods out there on the front end here with the digging and the moving and everything else?
Yeah,
Huh?
I mean, for as much dirt was moved, you'd think we'd need a huge crew. But really, we have 3 or 4 different types of equipment out there. And if you watch these excavators work, it's unbelievable in terms of their accuracy and ability to just move, almost make what you put on a plan come to life.
Isn't that neat?
And so there's really been 2 people involved with the excavation, but they've just done a phenomenal job of really taking what we had for a vision, working with what our constraints and our opportunities were on site, and making it happen.
Nice.
And so by the end of the day tomorrow, we should have finished grade set on it. And by the end of the week, we should have a liner.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I think we should do too is we should start getting a little bit of video and downloading some of our pictures and stuff of the progress and put it on the website.
Sure.
And listeners and viewers can go and check that out at edelweissdesign.com, our
That's
website.
a great idea. Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of listeners out there already feel like they've been to the site by the end of this podcast. So
Yeah,
that's
we
our
wanna
job
start
is to create that experience.
Yeah.
And as you can hear from these guys, that they've really immersed themselves into the project, and it is very much a changing, emotive, moving, evolving experience, and a lot of gratification is going to come out of that.
Indeed.
Yeah. So then the other thing we figured out is, the key thing is, how do you get water in this thing? Because we're just not gonna turn on a tap.
Right. It's a lot of water.
And so it is. It's a lot.
How
of
many
water.
gallons in this 7,000 plus square foot space then?
The
9
rough
feet deep.
estimate we have, rough enough.
20,000?
No, like 330,000 gallons.
Oh my God.
And so we'll end up trucking water in from the St. Croix and be able to use some of basically the St. Croix is very close to our site.
Okay.
So we'll be able to use some of that natural water, and he's kind of pumped just to have not have to run as well for like a month straight.
Right. When you say truck the water in, what does that mean? I mean,
They'll literally
they'll fill some trucks
trucks with water,
about
pump
that?
it right into the thing. Yep.
and then go.
Yep.
And
And then some projects, if they're small enough, you'll get you can call your fire department and they'll fill it. So
is that right?
So, but this one's pretty large, and we don't really have fire hydrant access necessarily close. So,
Now we have a pond in our backyard, and when I drain it and clean it and then refill it, I always get a little ding from the city. I mean, a nice ding, which is you're using an excessive amount of water here over the last 3 or 4 days. You might want to check your basement. Are you at home?
Yeah.
You got a leak going on somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm appreciative of that they're so proactive on the water meter that they're able to see that.
well, and the other thing about it, beyond aesthetics and beyond every other positive impact that this pond is going to provide for them, is that there's these folks may want to if they go away in the winter, might want to draw down the water, blow out basically the house for their pipes, and so they can drain their whole house right into the pond.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a dual there's many purposes, but I'll say a dual purpose to this pond as well. It's a really unique, kind of almost holistic portion of this project. So
Boy, it's the
Do
exact
we have any
opposite of,
spring-fed action playing into this pond at all? Is there some natural runoff that's going to be going in, or?
there's about 3/4 of the site will drain naturally into it. No spring, but then the outflow, if we do get like a 3-inch or 4-inch rain, it'll overflow and it'll follow the natural outflow of the project too.
Okay.
So in terms of an impact to a site, we've really minimized any negative impacts because the site will act virtually like it normally would, except we're holding back some of the water and really delaying any erosion,
Yeah.
in the ditches and down the road that we would have got before.
because all of that rain would have simply fallen on the landscape, and
Right.
it would have needed to drain somewhere. So you're just still following the natural drain pattern of that acre or so of land and allowing it to be, going where it needs to go.
Yeah,
where
that's
it would
right.
have gone anyhow.
That's right, and we're just keeping our fair share.
Yeah, and a little additional there. Yeah,
that's right.
300,000 gallons.
Yeah.
Man, I wasn't doing the math very well in my head there. I couldn't envision how much water was there. But
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a lot of water. When do you project this? When's this project going to be done?
Boy, I'm sure our client would love to know. So maybe he'll have to listen to the podcast to find out. This project, all the planting, there's many phases to it.
Yeah.
Pond should be probably filled by the end of next week. But all the plantings and whatnot, we're probably looking into the mid-June range.
So we're talking excavation and shaping of the land done this week. Liner laid down by the end of this week. Sand then going in right away first part of next week. Smooth that out. Make sure the shoreline is looking good. Get those trucks going and get that water rocking. And then by a 2-week or so window, there should be water in that pond.
Yeah.
With that aeration system or that diffuser system doing what it needs to do.
Yep.
And then you'll finish the edges and do more things after.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean, the pond is just one piece of this thing
Right.
where so much equipment that needs to run around to make it happen.
Yeah.
And then we've got trees to move, and we've got some other piece of machinery, and then after that we'll finish the grade, and then we'll get our prairie seeded.
Yeah.
And so that's just another. And there's several milestones. And the funny thing is, we thought, hey, we'd seed this, we'd seed the prairie, early spring and let it go. And we've got ourselves into now a multifaceted and multi-phased project where the seeding's kind of the icing on the cake, if you will, now.
Sure.
And so it's just a really interesting opportunity to see all this go down and go come together.
It's just fascinating. So we segue from Afton, Minnesota, to North Minneapolis, Minnesota. So by the end of this summer, by certainly the summer itself, indeed, the family in Afton will be dipping their toes in that water and swimming in there, perhaps. When are the kids in North Minneapolis going to be swimming in the new Weber pool?
Well, we're hoping for the first or second weekend in June.
Okay,
and
right around the corner.
Right around the corner. It's been much anticipated. The project has faced a few delays due to weather and some other constraints, but the community, Camden community in North Minneapolis, has been anticipating this pool for a long time. They want their swimming pool back.
There was a Windex pool there for many years.
There was, yes.
And thank you for that, by the way. I'm going to continue to use that term. I like that a lot. It makes me laugh. And then that was torn out in anticipation of this going in. So that was the plan as they resculpted and reshaped this park space.
There was actually an existing retention pond that was lined. That the liner had some leaks. They were filling it with a well on site, and it just wasn't economical anymore. They were putting more water into it than it would hold. Separate from that, there was a chemical pool, and due to structural concerns, it was torn out. So that the park board had a need to renovate, and they were looking to do a complete master plan. Put out a request to the public for ideas on what to include in the site, and someone returned with an answer of a natural swimming pool. The park board then said to themselves, what on earth is that?
Yeah, what is that? I mean, had this person, maybe they traveled to Europe or did a little homework or they just knew about it? One of those things happened.
Potentially,
Yeah, one of those things happened. Isn't that cool? So they brought this whole idea to the fore. And then how long did it take for the park board to ruminate on that and the planners at the park board to think about that and say, hey, this is a really neat thing. Let's pursue this further. And then go to the phase of saying, let's do this.
Right. So the park board did a bit of Googling, I guess you would say, and found a company that was offering this service locally here in North America. To do some consulting on what it would take, maintenance costs, construction costs, full scope. Gave several presentations to the park board, city officials, and of course, because this is new technology here in North America, especially in the commercial or public sector, it needs to be regulated. So there were a series of presentations given to senators and environmental committees to pass new legislation to allow this technology to be implemented in a commercial setting.
Brand new thing.
That's right.
It's brand new.
Though it's been proven overseas, it's new here.
Sure.
they were successful in doing so.
Isn't that cool? So the
Yes.
public safety, obviously, like in the
Correct.
Windex Blue Pool world, all those things, they have to
Yes.
have regulations. And I imagine some of those regulations carried through from the safety perspective, like we talked about fencing, other
Correct.
things like that. Those are pretty standard things.
Right.
But now I want to get in the nuts and bolts of how this works on a filtration level and how
Sure.
it works. Obviously, these are the considerations that were new from a regulatory perspective, and so they're also new in regard to how we deal with swimming in clean water in this kind of environment. So this is pretty cool. I think this is the part that I've been wanting to get into here. Where I don't know where we begin. I mean, the end product obviously is a place to swim, and it's a natural body of water, no aquatics, no other things, but it's naturally filtered water, no chemicals in there, as you said, no bromide, no chlorine. So take us from there backwards. I mean, the water has to recirculate, it has to get filtered. How does it work?
We'll start in the swimming pool. You think of it as a kind of a five levels of cleaning. So water is leaving the swimming area by way of overflow channels. So large surface debris is collecting on those overflow channels. Step one, it's flowing into a series of what we refer to as fine filters. Think of a large spaghetti colander with a geotextile insert.
Okay.
This is trapping fine particulate matter before it enters by gravity the regeneration zone or the planted wetlands. It's moving through a series of perforated pipe through a gravel bed filter. By gravity, it's flowing upwards through the plant roots. Plants are uptaking nutrients to outcompete algae for available resources.
So this is the part that I thought was going to be woven into this storyline, and that is this water is filtering up through actual plants themselves then.
Correct.
So there's like a small field, if you will,
Yes.
of plants that are the natural, really the big step in the natural filtering.
I wouldn't
there.
even say small. It's the regeneration zone is about 16,000 square feet,
How big is the pool?
21,000
So
square
it's
feet.
about the same, almost the same
Yep.
size.
In general, for planning purposes, we say you should plan for a 1-to-1.
Okay.
It depends on a number of variables: the size of the swimming area, intended or expected bather use, external factors. That sizing or ratio could change, but in general, 1-to-1.
That's really neat. That's something else. So I got to imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is the planting area a place where you can simply enjoy the landscape as well? Is that how it's laid out? So
Right.
That's all a part of what this project is.
It's a functional biological and botanical filter, but it's also a beautiful water garden. It's an aesthetic consideration in the landscape as well.
Sort of like a slough, maybe, or what would be a good way to describe? Because how deep is that area then? 3-4 feet deep?
Yeah,
with the water?
several feet. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
There's area for marginal and emergent aquatic plants, floating plants, water lilies, and an area for deep water submergent plants. And each plant, of course, has its own role to play in the filtration.
Okay,
But
sure. And so they're literally pulling those particulates, those nutrients out of the water, using them,
Yep.
and just letting fresh water then flow back in.
Right. The plants have a big role to play, but also the natural biology, the microorganisms, beneficial bacteria, phytoplankton, zooplankton are all breaking down those organic impurities as well, and converting them into pure water oftentimes.
That's just fascinating. Is there a last step of the filtration process, or does it just really more or less flow gently and naturally from the plant area then back into the swimming
Right.
area?
Thus far, we're moving from by gravity from the swimming area to the regeneration zone. On the other end of the regeneration zone, we're actually drawing water with pumps back through the gravel bed filter and returning it back to the pool, completing essentially the 5-step process to cleaning.
Yeah. Now, obviously chlorine plays a role in preventing the spread of disease or spreading the, certain bacterias. We've had, the bacteria issues that some swimmers have had, the parasites and what have you. What happens in this kind of situation, and how is that mitigated?
Well, chlorine is very good at what it does. It kills everything in the water except hopefully you and me.
Yes, we would hope so.
What this biological system, because it's biologically active, there are living things in the water. Essentially, what's happening is we're crowding out the harmful pathogens.
I see.
Such as Cryptosporidium or Giardia or things of that nature.
The Nigella fowleri, that sort of thing, or
Yeah, that's kind of a different monster altogether. The conditions where Naegleria fowleri thrives
Thank you.
is in shallow bodies of water where the water temperature is stagnant, and it's also allowed to raise to an unhealthy level. Also, it thrives in sediment. So oftentimes you'll read in these cases where children are contracting this pathogen or this amoeba is when they're doing handstands, stirring up sediment,
sure.
and it enters through the nasal passage
Yep.
and attacks the brain. So in a natural swimming pool, as I said before, we're creating a contained area, and there is maintenance involved. So we're not allowing those sediments to build up. It
The
really doesn't
temperature zones that you mentioned, all of that kind of
we're
stuff. Yeah.
circulating the water
Yeah,
constantly, so it's moving. It really won't become a problem there.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to get into it. I live in the northwest suburbs,
It'll be free to the public.
and so I want to put that swimming suit on and give this a try. Very excited to see it happen for the citizens of the Camden area
Yep.
too.
Yep.
And I know that was a part of the park board's initiative is in general to take the park mentality that's been so central and in southern Minneapolis and extend it into the northern part of the city in ways that haven't been paid attention to for a long time.
Yeah, I know that the swimming pool, the chemical swimming pool, that was important to the community there ever since it was first built many years ago. So they'll be happy to have that swimming amenity back in their neighborhood this June.
So like June. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah,
Fascinating
my pleasure.
stuff. And Josh, thank you as well. No, I'm not sending you guys out because we're going to get in. We're going to get into your perspective on some tree planting here because we've got about 9 minutes left here, Bob. So let's jam real quick on some tree planting. Arbor Day coming up, and it's Earth Day week, and so this is the time to get the shovel in the ground and do some stuff. You wanted to go a little bit into bare root planting, Bob. Give us a little highlight as to what you meant by wanting to spotlight that.
Well, before I start on that, just a little touch on the Earth Day kind of environment is that whatever we haven't finished cleaning up this spring, we ought to take that opportunity this week to get done. So if there are leftover leaves and debris that is collected along the foundations of the house or along your driveway or along the curb in the street, now's the time to get that kind of stuff out because the rains and everything are going to start washing that stuff down into our sewer system.
Well said.
So a good time to really just get rid of the old stuff, the debris. Recyclables is a good time to focus again on recyclables and things that can go into our recyclable system we already have set up with the city, but also check out dates of when things are going to be picked up in terms of junk and some of the toxic stuff like paint cans and those kind and get that stuff out now. Spring cleaning on the outside of your home as much as on the inside.
Very
so I just
good.
wanted to mention that
Very good.
and it just does give you an appreciation for the things that you have around you. And then they don't sit there all summer and bug you mentally. So with Arbor Day and tree planting, there's three different approaches to planting trees, and for the homeowner, and one is of course the bare root approach, where if you have access to bare root trees, you can plant them yourself. This is the optimal time to be planting those and digging a hole, prepping for the placement of a bare root tree in the hole. When you do that, let's see, most bare root things are going to run around 1.5 inches in diameter, anywhere from 0.75 to 1.5 inches in diameter of the stem, that comes up off of the root. And with that, you get the hole dug to the appropriate size to literally splay out the roots as you set it down in the hole. And you want the root crown where the trunk meets the roots,
Yep.
and they spread out. That intersection there, you want that to sit a little bit above the elevation
Where the grade will be.
of the grade.
Okay.
Because one of the top killers of newly planted trees is, and even later on down the line, is that they're planted too deep. They literally die of oxygen deprivation, and you get all kinds of other problems that develop as well. So we want to plant them a little on the high side.
Is that the collar? Is that called the collar?
Yeah,
or where-
kind of the root collar.
Yeah, where that transition
And
point
some
is,
trees
yeah.
are bud grafted, where there may be a different root system of another species with the graft of the desired cultivar on the top of the bud crown. So when you splay those roots out, you don't want any of them to literally be bunched up in the bottom of the hole. You want them, make the hole deeper if you have to accommodate the spread of the roots, both width and depth, and then start backfilling gently with a mixed compost and topsoil mix of that you took out of the hole, and tamp it down lightly, and then add a root stimulator in a 5-gallon pail with the appropriate dilution, and you can pour that over some of the exposed roots and continue to backfill, and then add the rest on top once the soil has been all put into place, because there's air in there and it will sink a little bit,
Sure.
so you want to look at that. And then a light mulch to cover that to hold the moisture in, and then regular watering. You want to keep the soil on the dampish side but not sopping wet. And we don't want it to dry out. We want the moisture to be able to allow the root stimulator to do its thing. If any of you take food supplements and you're used to the smell of vitamin B, that a lot of the root stimulators contain that.
They do have
That's
that
a
smell.
good-
That's funny
good-
you bring that up.
because
Yeah.
it generates action in the root system rather than in the vegetative part of the tree, so that the roots get their start before they have to start supplying the rest of the tree. So that's one approach, bare root. The second would be container grown. And container grown trees range in size from as small as a 5-gallon pot all the way up to a 25-gallon or a 30-gallon pot. And what you want to watch with those is how long they've been in the container. If they've only been in a couple years, one season, preferable maybe two, then the chances of the roots growing around each other and literally strangling itself in the container are pretty low. And even when you plant a container tree, you want to knock a little bit of that soil off of the edges of what created the mold of the tree in the pot, and make sure that those tease some of those roots out a little bit so that they are not pointing inward towards the tree.
Okay.
And then the last one would be a baldwin burlap tree. And a baldwin burlap tree is something that's already been pre-dug. It can be dug in the late summer or fall or in the spring, depending on the type of tree. And those are usually done, smaller ones can be done by homeowners. Larger ones are done, obviously, in our
By
business.
guys like you. Yep.
We've got the guys that can do that, and the gals.
Yeah.
And those are, again, the proper planting practice where they're elevated high enough. The hole is dug about 50% larger width-wise than the size of the root ball, so that, you know, if the soil is particularly compacted, the roots aren't trying to fight their way out of the prison wall of compacted soil. And then quickly, I just wanted to mention some suggestions for types of trees that you could be looking at. And I kind of categorized them into tall, medium, and short.
I'm surprised cherry just wasn't at the top for you, but that's, you know,
well,
I'll let you go.
Yes.
I'll let you continue.
It depends a lot on site locations and so forth, and obviously there's more information available on that. But in the tall variety, we're looking at shade trees. We have space where maybe we've lost a shade tree, and we want to place some of that valuable shade on the southwest side of our house or the west side. With the hottest sun of the day. We look at our new American elms, of course. We have many, many cultivars, both in the American and Asian varieties. Princeton elm, Accolade elm is an Asian variety. There's other varieties available. Just check your local nurseries. The oaks, some people shy away from oaks because they think they just take so long to grow, but they hit a threshold where they break through and they really start to caliper up after about the first 5 years.
Okay.
And the swamp white oak is probably one of the most durable trees for our inner city location. Other oak varieties are available. There's columnar type varieties and for tighter spaces. And then the maple category, two that come to mind for your largest shade tree presentation would be the Autumn Blaze, which is a hybrid of a silver maple and a
Love that
rhubarb
tree.
maple that, you know, we're seeing the first generations of those coming into maturation. Some have been in the ground maybe 25, 30 years. And so they have some maintenance requirements with them that people need to understand because of the growth habits, and we're still observing and discovering what are their needs as they grow. But they are resilient, and they do provide us with a lot more fall color in the landscape.
You have time right now for one more tree, and then we'll pick it up where we left off next week on the show with our trees.
Well, let's go to some of the medium trees like honey locust, Korean maple, hop hornbeam, cork tree, aspen, and our short trees, or cherries, which are very ornamental.
There you go. There's the cherry.
Serviceberry, blue beech, fringe tree, tree lilac, redbud, Cercis canadensis is getting ready to open in the next week. Magnolia, which is in bloom right now. Flowering pear. Our native pagoda dogwood, which is great for understory locations and on east and north sides of sites. Hawthorn and witch hazel, another one that grows in our woods. So
very good. Well, we'll do a little quick repeat on that next week too. I think that's in order because there's a lot of planting to be done in the month of April in general, and certainly as we get into May. Josh McKinney, thank you so much for joining in on the Landscape and Garden Show today, my friend.
Thank you. Had a lot of fun.
Real good to have you here. Adam Jones, thank you very much. We'll see you swimming trunks, towels in hand, come June at the Weber Park Pool in North Minneapolis.
I think so.
That's just fascinating. Thanks again for sharing the story of the natural pool world. Appreciate that, my friend. And you guys promised now with the Afton Project and with the North Minneapolis Project, let's get some pictures on edelweissdesign.com and share some of that stuff.
I have a feeling we might do one of our broadcasts from some of those sites.
I like that
idea.
I'm in.
Check back and see when that's going to happen.
There's Bob Harvey. I'm Brian Turner. Thanks for joining in on the Alive and Social Network for the Landscape and Garden Show. We'll see you next week.